All right, unpacking this Flam mix-up thing. So this is probably the most intricate thing, especially for the basses. You know, you're dealing with accents, tenutos, staccatos, as well as regular taps, and then grace notes, which are understood to be even lower than taps. So you've got, let's see, accent, tenuto, staccato, taps, grace notes. You got like 5 different dynamic levels all within this thing. So basically the rule of thumb in this, or the overall rule, is that when you play a flam, the grace note should be very low in height. So the primary stroke should be high. I think without exception. There are some low flam things in the snare and tenor part, but on the bass drum part, I think all of the flams are accented. So you've got full extension here, and then playing position here. Right, so we kind of covered this in the drag rough thing at the very end of the exercise. So before we get into too much of that, I like to teach this one from the back to the beginning. It seems that the end of the exercise is easier than the beginning. So it's hard and then kind of progressively gets easier. So we're going to start with the easy stuff. So let's go to the last measure. And it actually starts with the left hand flam. So your playing position down here in your right hand, and then the accent height in your left, and then I do want it ended with an accented right hand flam. The note after that first flam in the last measure has a tenuto, so it should be almost as high as the accent. So when you hit this accent, you should let that left hand rebound to almost the same height of the accent. And then on beat 4 is where your right hand would start to lift for the release. So lift. Okay, so let's play that. We're going to break this one down at 70 beats a minute. We've been doing 80 on all the others, but because this one's a little more intricate, we'll go a little slower. So let's play that last measure. 5, 6, 7, 8. 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay. So just remember, I know you're probably having a low grace note on that left hand flam because it's the first thing, but then when you lift that right hand for the very last flam release, make sure and don't come up with your left hand like this. Right, you want to keep that left hand low. So let's play it again and just notice the extreme difference between the accent and the tap. Okay, so you'll also notice I'm not pumping my hands up and down for the taps like this. I'm strictly leaving my hands down and turning the hand with the wrist. Okay, so now let us look at measure 10, beat 3. So this is a 3-beat pattern called the double windmill, and that first thing that we just worked on, that is the last bar, is called a triple windmill or a triple flammed mill. So we're kind of working from the end to the beginning. So we did the triple, we're about to work on the double, and then after that we're going to work on the single. So the double windmill goes like this. Okay, so that's two of them. So you got a flam tap, is what that rudiment is called. It's the flam tap within the double windmill. So you got flam tap, single, single, flam tap, single, single. Okay, so that's how those go. And another overarching thing for the bottom two lines is after an accent, you'll always have a tenuto. And that's because the last two lines are focused on all of the flam tap rudiments where the rudiment starts with a flam tap. So the tap of the flam is almost accented. It's that tenuto. So again, let's start at measure 10, count 3, and play to the downbeat of measure 12. So we're playing 6 counts. 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so in this section, you should notice that the hand that's about to play an accent starts to lift a quarter note prior after it plays that preceding tap on the hand. So lift, lift. Okay, so let's play that again and try to focus on that aspect. While you're leaving the taps low, you want to focus on that lift. Okay, so now let's add the last measure to make sure we always go back and review. 5, 6, 7, 8. All right. So again, you know, you can pause, stop, rewind, whatever. This stuff, something that you might want to do is just work all of these rudiments out individually and not with a metronome, but just work them really slowly, making sure that all your heights and everything are in the proper place. And then over time, once you're comfortable with it, you speed it up a little bit. And then within you know, no time, you should be able to kind of play it this fast. So now let's look at the downbeat of measure 10. And this is a single flammed mill or a single windmill, some people call them. You'll hear me call them either one, a windmill or a flammed mill, it's the same thing. It's just got a flam tap single. Okay, so these are windmills. Flam tap single, flam tap single, flam tap single, flam tap single. Okay, so again, the flam tap has the accent into the tenuto, and then all of the singles are down low. So let's start at the beginning of 10 and just play those two beats. One, two, ready, play. 1, 2, ready, play. Okay. Now try that same thing, but back up 2 counts onto beat 3 of bar 9. It's the same thing, it's just starting with the left hand. So let's play a left-handed single flam mill or a left-handed windmill. 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, ready, play. 1, 2, ready, play. Alrighty. So, if you'll back up 2 more counts, you've got another single flam mill. So, in sequence, starting on bar 9, you've got 3 flammed mills, and then after that, you've got 2 double windmills and then 1 triple windmill. So, when you're playing the single windmill, you've got 3 of them. When you play the double windmill, you've got 2 of them. And then when you're playing the triple windmill, you've got 1 of them. Okay, so it just kind of changes the ratio depending on which one you're doing. So let's start at the beginning of measure 9 and go to the end. Play the 3 single windmills, the 2 double windmills, and the 1 triple windmill. 5, 6, 7, 8. 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 1. Alright, so that's how that sequence goes. I always try to look for patterns like that when I'm trying to memorize music, because if you know the rudiments and you kind of know how many times each one is played, that's all you have to remember. You don't have to remember there's a flam on the downbeat and then this on the upbeat, and then on beat 2 it does this, and those are all the details within it. But if you know the overall rudimental phrases, then you just have to put those phrases together. So all you have to do is remember the number and the sequence of those instead of what every particular count does. So now let's back up to measure 7. So we're skipping 8 on our way back from the end. So now we've got these are called Swiss Army triplets, or you might just hear them called Swiss triplets. It is a flam tap tap, right? So it's kind of a triplet type Swiss triplets. So you got a flam tap and then a tap on the other hand, and then it just stays on that right hand. So the Swiss Army triplet does not alternate, it stays on one hand. All right, so we've got 2 Swiss Army triplets, and then a flam tap. Flam tap, and then that transfers it over to the other hand. The important thing to remember in this measure 7, is that the left hand is extremely low. At no point should the left hand lift until beat 4. So, right, notice how low that was the whole time. So as you practice this, ensure that in measure 7 your left hand stays low until beat 4. Now the right hand, you lift it in the typical manner, and after the tenuto you let it bounce back up to full accent height. So, right, so notice that I don't hold it down at any point in that. So let's play that measure, thinking about those things. 5, 6, 7, 8. Ready, play. 2, ready, play. Okay. So something that I like to do when I'm working these rudiments is what's called a form focus. So all these individual things that I pointed out to look out for, you could create a list. So, you know, in measure 7, keep the left hand down, make sure it's accent and tenuto, and then lift immediately back up to the accent. And just come up with a short way to think about all of those that you can write down on a list. And then that way, when you're practicing this, you can refer to that list and say, okay, measure 7, these are like the 4 things that I need to look out for. And you can just look at one at a time. So what you shouldn't try to do is to try to master all of them immediately, especially if you're new to this stuff. You should focus on one aspect at a time, and once you can just do that and achieve it at a high level, then you can focus on pairing them. So you might add 1 and 2 together and try to think about just doing both of those at the same time, and then 3 and 4. And once you've successfully put those pairs together, then you can pair those pairs. So you can try to think kind of about all 4, but it's mainly on autopilot at that point, and you're only concentrating on trying to put them together, not on each individual thing. So that is my suggestion, especially for this Flam mix-up, because there are so many different aspects and nuances to each rudiment. Okay. So, now measure 8 is the same as measure 7, but it's off of the left hand. So the same mechanics apply, just switch the hands. The right hand stays super low, and the left hand is the one that bounces from the tenuto back up to the accent. So let's try measure 8. 5, 6, 7, you ready, play. 2, ready, play. Alright, so now let's try to play measure 7 and 8 together. 5, 6, 7, 8. 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so now let's review measure 9 to the end. So again, this is the 3 single windmills, the 2 double windmills, and the 1 triple windmill. 5, 6, 7, 8. Flam tap single, flam tap single, flam tap single, flam tap single, single, flam tap single, single, flam tap single, single, single. 1, 2, ready, play. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1. Excellent. So when I say single windmill or double or triple, the single refers to the fact that you've got 1 single. So you got the flam tap single. And then the double refers to you've got 2 singles. Flam tap single, single. And then the triple windmill refers to the fact that you have 3 singles in there. Flam tap single, single, single. Okay, so that's how to kind of remember that. All right, so we've reviewed that. So now let's play measure 7 to the end. 5, 6, 7, 8. 7, 8. Swish triplet, swish triplet, flam tap, swish triple, swish triplet, flam tap. So that is the B section of this exercise. The A section is the first 2 lines. So we've just gotten under our belt half of the exercise. So good job. So now, in what we've done so far, after an accent is always a tenuto. Now, in the top part, after every accent is just going to be a tap on the opposite hand. So instead of rebounding from the accent to the tenuto on the same hand, you're going to play an accented flam, and then the next note is going to be on the opposite hand and soft. So either an accented right hand flam into a left hand, or an accented left hand flam into a low right hand. So that's kind of the rule for the top 2 lines, except for the first 2 counts, in which case it's just 2 flams. So, yeah, I guess we can still teach this one backwards as well. So, look at measure 5, beat 3, and we're going to look at those 6 counts. So these are flam paradiddle diddles. Again, this is one of those hybrid type rudiments, and for some reason this one alternates, even though the paradiddle diddle does not alternate. It stays on the same hand. So a paradiddle diddle does this. A flam paradiddle diddle goes from hand to hand. So that's that. So let's look at bar 5, beat 3, and play those 6 counts. You got flam diddle diddle, flam diddle diddle. 5, 6, 7, 8. High accents, low taps, ready, play. Okay, so a tendency on this is, again, it's going to be to raise the grace notes, right? You're going to want to go, right? But you just have to fight that with all you can when you've got this double into the accent on that hand. Double accent. When you raise for that accent, leave the other hand down. Okay, let's try that another couple times and just notice the extreme difference between the accents and the taps. 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so if you need to rewind that or just pause it, figure out that sticking and everything, and then go back and try to play it with me, then that's preferable. Okay, sorry, this font is really small, so it's hard for me to read. I'm getting old. Backing up 2 counts, you've just got a flam paradiddle off the left hand. So flamadiddle. Okay. You can call those flamadiddles if you want, or a flam paradiddle, either one. I usually call them a flam paradiddle unless I'm speaking as I'm playing, and I just say flamadiddle because that matches up with what I'm playing. So let's just play that 2 counts right there. Left-handed flam paradiddle. 5, 6, 7, 8. Flamadiddle. 5, 6, 7, 8. Flamadiddle. 5, 6, 7, 8. Flamadiddle. Okay, and the mechanics more or less work the same as the regular paradiddle in the fact that the second note of the flam paradiddle is the upstroke. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So after that second note, that hand lifts. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So, now I'm going to ask you to go to measure 3, beat 3. So beat 3 and 4 going into the downbeat of measure 4 is called a pata-fla-fla. Say that with me, pata-fla-fla, pata-fla-fla. So the fla-fla refers to the 2 flams in a row. So notice in this one that it's flam, flam, flam. So pata-fla-fla. However, in somewhere along the way, we've taken it and gone pat-fla-fla, pat. So the fla-fla is not actually when you're playing the flams. So I guess what we should call this is a fla-pat-fla-fla. Fla-pat-fla-fla. But when we're just saying it, it's a pat-fla-fla. And it is, I believe, a French rudiment, but rudimental drumming came from Switzerland and France and that whole area, so it could have originally been French or Swiss. So anyway, so now let's play just a right hand pata-fla-fla. So that is the, okay, and notice that left hand flam in this right hand pata-fla-fla is only a staccato inflection. So it's just a slight accent. So strong accent, weak, strong. Strong, weak, strong. Okay, let's try that together. 5, 6, 7, 8. Strong, weak, strong. 5, 6, 7, 8. Strong, weak, strong. Okay. Now, jump forward another 2 counts to beat 3 of bar 4. So you've got a left-handed pata-fla-fla. So everything applies. It's just starting with the left-hand flam instead of the right. So you still have strong, weak, strong. Let's try that one. 5, 6, 7, 8. Strong, weak, strong. 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 Okay, so now backing back up to measure 3, beat 3. It's a pata-fla-fla into a flamadiddle. Okay, so let's just play those 4 counts. Pata-fla-fla, flamadiddle, and then in with a left hand flam. 5, 6, 7, 8. Strong, weak, flamadiddle. 2, ready, play. 2, ready, play. Alright, so now the next 4 counts is exactly the same thing, but on the other hand. So we have a left-handed pata-fla-fla into a left-handed flamadiddle, or a flam-paradiddle. So let's just do those 4. 5, 6, 7, 8. 2, ready, play. 2, ready, play. 2, ready, play. Okay, so let's back up to measure 3, beat 3, and play those 8 counts. So you got a pata-fla-fla, flam-paradiddle, pata-fla-fla, flam-paradiddle, stop. 5, 6, 7, 8. 2, 2, ready, play. 2, ready, play. All right, so now let's add the Flam paradiddle diddles to that. So we're going to start at the same place and add the next 6 counts. 5, 6, 7, 8. 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, let's review the B section to make sure we haven't forgotten that. So let's play all of B real quick. 5, 6, 7, 8. Swiss triplet, Swiss triplet, Flam tap, Swiss triplet, Swiss triplet, Flam tap, single, Flam tap, single, Flam tap, single, Flam tap, single, single, Flam tap, single, single, Flam tap, single, 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 Flam. 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so now let's play from measure 3, beat 3, all the way to the end. 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so now what we're going to do is actually start at the beginning to work the first 2.5 measures. Okay, so I probably should have started with the first 2 counts, but we're neither here nor there. So let's just play the first 2 counts. That's a right flam into a left flam. The important thing again is that you leave the grace note down, and immediately after playing that grace note you start to lift, because that same hand is about to be the primary stroke for the next flam. So let's play the first 2 counts into the downbeat of the 3rd count. 5, 6, 7, 8. 5, 6, 7, 8. 5, 6, 7, 8. Left, left, left. So you've got one hand going down, up, down, and the other hand is going up, down, up. Okay. So now measure 1, beat 3. Those 2 counts. That is called an inverted flam tap. Some would call it a tap flam instead of a flam tap. Most people these days call it an inverted flam tap, so that's what I'm going to call it most of the time. So notice that the strong beats are the same as the first 2 beats. So you got a right flam and a left flam on the downbeat, but in between you've got those taps. So you got a right flam, left tap, left flam, right tap. and then another right flam to release. So we can't do the float thing that we were just doing in the first couple of counts because we've got to play another tap there. So you hold it down. So you play that right flam, leave both hands down, and then as you play that left tap, you lift, and then a left flam, and then a right tap upstroke into a right. So, all right, let's try that. Five, six, seven, 5, 6, 7, 8. Alright, and again, you have the pause button, you have the rewind button. You can pause it and just work that out really slowly and slowly speed it up until you're able to play it at this tempo, okay? So now let's play that entire first measure. Flam, flam, invert, invert, stop. 5, 6, 7, 8. 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay? So, now the next part should be easy because we already talked about the flam accent in the drag rough video. Again, the flam accent is basically like a triplet type pattern where you're alternating the hands and accenting each downbeat like this. Right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left. And you just flam the accents. Flam, flam accent, flam accent, flam accent, flam accent, flam. Okay, so that is the first 3 counts of measure 2. It's just 2 flam accents. So let's play that. 1 and 2 and 3, 4. Flam accent, 4. 1, 3. 1, 2. Ready? Play. Flam accent, flam. Okay? So that's those 3 counts. Now, you've already learned the patafla-fla, where you've got the fla-fla is the 2 flams in a row. So now what we're going to do is play a hybrid rhythm, which I call the patafla-fla flam accent, or the flam accent patafla-fla. And this is actually supposedly closer to the original patafla-fla than the typical patafla-fla that we all play. So, patafla-fla. So you've just got a flam that rebounds to the staccato height. Right? So it's basically a flam accent, but it's just got a little flam on the 3rd note of each flam accent. Flam, that's flap, flap. Right? There's not really a verbal way to say this that I can think of. It would be easy, so just flam, 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 flam. Okay? So again, you're going to want to pause or rewind or whatever, stop the video, and work this out, ensuring that you have a full accent sound, a staccato sound, and everything else is super low. And yeah, so let's play measure 2, beat 3, those 3 counts. 5, 6, 7, 8. 3, 5, 6, 7, 8. All right, so let's play from the beginning to there. So we're playing the first 2.5 measures. 5, 6, 7, 8. 3, 5, 6, 7, 8. Alright, so in my opinion, those are the hardest measures for snares and tenors and basses and everything, is those first 2.5 measures. So that's why I kind of start with the other stuff and work to that. So hopefully you're a little more comfortable with the aspect of a flam before we start kind of mixing it up too much there at the very beginning. So I hope you got something out of this video. We're going to stop this and hit record again, and I'm going to try to record some run-throughs for you so you can practice with me at different tempos.